All right. Good evening, everyone. This is Kevin Crouch with Ellis County Weather, and I wanted to bring you this special event to talk a little bit about the tornado that we experienced on May 3rd, some of the things that we learned, some of the things that we saw, some of the things that I will take forward with me, having experienced that. I know that it will go down in history as one of the defining moments of Ellis County Weather. It was one of those times where this platform is really put to the test, where I am really put to the test. And so I knew that that it would be really informative for people to have this information and to be able to take something away from it. Um, you know, that night was tough. It was very very tough because it took a lot for me just to um, separate myself emotionally from everything that was going on because I love this county. I love the people in this county. And when you have the knowledge that I have about severe weather and about tornadoes, and you see one happening in real time, you see it analytically, but at the same time, you understand the damage and the impact that is likely going on. So for me, it was a real challenge, as it always is, to keep myself focused on doing things analytically, but also it just took me staying focused on doing the weather and not being emotional, not being fearful of what could be happening, not letting that impact me at all. And so we're going to go through several different things tonight. We're going to look at how the forecast evolved before the event, because that was actually a very impactful part of everything. We're also going to talk about the tornado itself, what it looked like on radar, what it looked like to the just to folks on the ground. It was at night, so it was a very big challenge to get anything visual on the tornado, but I have some exclusive footage here that is kind of exemplified by the image that you're seeing there on your screen. That is just a part of it. We'll see some more views of this. And the aftermath and some of the things that we learned from that tornado, from the damage that it left. Tornadoes leave a footprint, and they always, or at least almost always, show a pretty good indication of what they leave behind, and what they did, what was going on inside the tornado. We learn so much from the damage. That's how we actually rate tornadoes. Is we will look at the damage that was caused, and that will actually tell us how strong the tornado was, as well as a few other things. So I'll get into that as well. Before we get started, something I'm really excited about, I wanted to talk about the screening of Twister that is coming up next month on July 27th at 7 p.m. here at the Showbiz Cinemas in Waxahachie. And seats are limited. We are almost two-thirds of the way to sold out. So seats are going fast. So you want to make sure you grab your tickets. I think the link is in the comments as well. It's going to be a really fun time. I'm going to do kind of a short introduction at the beginning. Then we'll get into actually watching the movie. I've never seen the movie on the big screen. And if you've not been in the Showbiz theaters since they remodeled, it's the most comfortable theater seats I think I've ever sat in. They recline, they're comfortable. The only thing keeping you from going to sleep will be the action on screen. So it's going to be a really, really fun event. I'm going to take some questions and things afterwards as well. The theater has been very generous with us. But you want to make sure you get your tickets. That's the only way I can limit seating, because there's only so many seats in a theater. And obviously there's a lot of people that follow this page and a lot of people that love Twister. So go to the link in the comments here, the posted comment, and make sure that you get your tickets for the screening of Twister hosted by Ellis County Weather. So let's start to get into this. And the first thing I want to talk about is the forecast. This was an event that going into this week, we knew storms were possible on that Tuesday. by no means did this look like a major event. If you would have asked me on Sunday or Monday, is this going to be a major event that we'll talk about for years to come, and I probably would have said no, because the forecast was not calling for that kind of a major situation. So let's take a look, and I'm probably going to take a couple of things off the screen here just so that it's easier for you to see. Yes, this recording will be posted after the original the event. So this will be recorded and posted afterwards for viewing, if on demand is better for you. So I'm going to go ahead and take a couple things off the screen so it's easier to see. So the first thing you're going to see here, this is the forecast as it was on Monday. And as you can see, it talks about Monday evening. There will be a dry line present, and it says there is a stout cap that will inhibit storm development. If the cap erodes or is broken, storms could occur. We will cover that here in a few minutes. But as you can see, for Monday night, there was really not a whole lot expected in our area. I mean, the best chance for severe weather was to the northeast of us, and there was plentiful severe weather in that area. But really the biggest kind of impact was how much storms could develop in this area, what the dry line would do, what the cold front would do. And it looked like the dry line was pretty much going to inhibit most of what was going to happen here. And as you can see, Tuesday morning, of course, everything was going to be moved out of our area. So this is where we get into early Tuesday morning. And this is what was expected. So, all modes of severe weather were possible. But again, it was talked about Monday morning. It was talked about, most of the severe weather is going to be to the north. Of course, that's where we had that triple point, right? The cold front, the dry line, and the low pressure system. That triple point oftentimes is the concentration of where you get the worst severe weather. So that was looking at the evening. Overnight, you see that the severe weather, kind of the area of expectation, did drag southward a little bit towards Ellis County. And that was along the cold front. So you see the dry line's not there anymore. If you remember that night, we had that solid line of storms come through. That was where the cold front caught up with the dry line and pushed everything through. So that is kind of what we were seeing in the forecast for that day. And then early Tuesday morning, obviously cooler weather coming in with scattered strong storms and just isolated storms far to the east. So this is what was expected early Tuesday morning. Okay, and it hadn't really changed a lot from Monday night. Here's where things began to change a little bit. And I was at work, at my day job, watching these developments come through. And I specifically remember throughout the day thinking about the fact that this was all starting to change. It was all starting to evolve a little bit. Things were looking a little differently. So this is the forecast we got right around lunchtime. Things began to change. And I remember that the post, when they posted this on Twitter, the National Weather Service over in Fort Worth actually said that forecasts can change quickly, and that was the discussion that was happening at that point, was how the forecast was very quickly going to change. And so this is what we were looking at 5 to 10 p.m. So as you remember, let's go back one. You remember, right, that this is what we were looking at. This is what was expected. Off to the north, isolated strong storms in our area, no. This completely changed to where now we're looking at a more intense situation, 5 to 10 p.m. in this area. Then obviously you can see here kind of that elongated area of severe weather, that solid line, and then not much had changed about Tuesday morning, but definitely the forecast had changed for the evening on that Monday. So let's talk about the cap a little bit. This was one of the things that really changed, and this was reposted on the 3rd. You see this is issued April 10th. I believe this was reposted on May 3rd. It's kind of a reminder of what was happening. And the cap had changed. In fact, the cap had gone. It was much weaker and it was expected to be busted. And it says here, of course, that the cap is a layer of warm air, usually located 1 to 2 miles above the surface, and that storm development can be completely prevented by the cap, even when when other severe weather ingredients are in place. So the cap's strength is critical for thunderstorm forecasting. And with a cap, this is kind of what was expected that day. As a developing storm arises into warmer air, it's cooler and heavier than its surroundings, so it sinks back down. So it tries to develop, and it hits that cap and goes right back down. That's why you see some of these storms, they'll start to develop and they just squish like a bug. And then there is no cap in place. Soon after that, without a cap in place, rising air from the surface is warmer and lighter than its surroundings, allowing for storms to continue growing. So once the cap is gone, or once a storm breaks through the cap, all of those other ingredients for severe weather are there, and the storms just shoot up like rockets. So that's when you get those towers of clouds that we've all seen, where it's just growing very quickly without any kind of inhibition. So here's the watches and warnings as they went through the day, and I want to talk about how incredibly helpful this was to the whole process. Right? This is where, we can see what ended up happening across the not only the area, but our specific area too, and why warnings were so incredibly impactful. So this was the tornado watch that was issued, and it was effective until 11 p.m. So it wasn't expected to be a terribly late event by any means. But this was a pretty large area. Of course, remember, this was the area that was supposed to see most of the severe weather, and then they kept having to move that southward. So, and the storm, of course, developed right over on the edge of this watch and continued eastward. So let's get into the first tornado warning that was issued. Now, this storm had been tornado warned for quite some time. This was the first warning that really impacted the Ellis County area. So there was rotation. There was a tornado actually on the ground at this point. And this tornado warning continued over into our area until 8:45 p.m. So this was the first tornado warning that was issued. And you can see that this would have been warned for miles, right? It was going to be warned all the way into the Waxahachie area. Of course, it ended up taking kind of this track. And so they did a pretty good job of covering where the storm would actually go with the polygon that they created. And then after this, it was, of course, this is when the tornado was in the Forreston area, in the Forreston South Waxahachie area, and they continued over to the Bardwell-Ennis area. Of course, the circulation ended up going more towards Bristol. But there wasn't any kind of tornadic activity in that area that we are aware of at this point. So my slides got a little out of order, so I don't have an introduction for this next slide. But now we're going to look actually at the tornado. And it may seem like I'm going through this quickly, but I know there's probably going to be quite a few questions you guys have. And again, if you do have questions, those are going to be held until the end. So feel free to send those questions in, and I will answer those at the end of this broadcast. But let's go ahead and take a look at the tornado. And what I'm going to show you is actually it's exclusive video that I've obtained from an old friend of mine that sent it to me not long after the event. And I was able to actually slow it down, kind of cut it apart and slow it down and actually get the best possible views. So let's go ahead and get to that footage here. All right, let's see if I can get this to, here we go. Okay. So you're going to want to watch over on this end of the screen, and I've slowed this down quite a bit, so hopefully we can cover everything. Watch this side of the screen. And obviously there's some lightning. Again, this was a night tornado. He's on 876 looking south and west. So just be watching very closely. And you have a power flash, and you can see the wall cloud here, right? You can see the curvature on the wall cloud. A very active wall cloud with this tornado. And then if you be looking right in here, right to the edge of your screen, and there's that power flash. You see that very brief look at the storm, very good look at you saw that funnel where that power flash illuminated it. And there you see the funnel during a lightning strike, and it was very hard to get this with very slow animation. Even because lightning strikes are just very, very quick. But you're going to see, here it is. There's that tornado, and you can even see the dust, the debris field at the bottom there. So even though it doesn't look like the actual funnel itself is on the ground, you can tell that the tornado itself is on the ground. The funnel, the condensation funnel, doesn't have to be on the ground for it to be a tornado. It doesn't have to. Let's take one more look at that. All that has to happen is the column of air has to reach the ground, and it had. And you actually saw just a quick little look at the funnel there. Much thinner, had not quite grown as much. This was probably right when it had reached the ground or was about to. But that was just a very quick look. It's real easy to miss that. But here, of course, off to the edge of your screen, we're going to watch for that power flash. And you'll see the tornado there. And that was lightning, I believe. Well, actually, no, that probably was a power flash. You see that kind of that turquoise color. That oftentimes is a power flash when those transformers explode. And you saw the wall cloud, but be watching very closely. There's that tornado. There's that funnel. And it was much closer to the ground, but it was thinner. So this was earlier in the tornado's lifespan. There's another look at it. That was another view of that funnel. And again, it's a little bit thinner here, so it's there, right? And then watch again, just in the center of your screen. Bam, right here, and you can see everything. And you see that funnel there as well. The other thing you notice, I don't know if you noticed it too, but there was something dark off to the edge of your screen on the right side of that funnel. I don't know if that was a part of the lowering from the wall cloud, or something else that might allude to some conclusions we reached when Matt, my moderator, and I actually surveyed some of the damage. So here we have, I think this is just more of the footage here. And of course, this is the picture of the tornado, and that's that dark, kind of that dark lowering I was talking about. And again, I don't know if this is just a feature of the wall cloud, but this is, of course it was blurry because in the dark, the phone that was taking the video couldn't really focus very well, but very, very clear debris field here. Very, very clear. And you can see it kind of wraps around here. I'm not sure exactly what that is, but I'm assuming it's possibly just, some dirt or debris or something getting pulled this way and then rotating in. Very, very interesting. Would have been much more, obviously, easier to see had it been in person. Had it been light, I should say. But very, very clear funnel. And again, that condensation funnel doesn't appear to be touching the ground, but the air column that really is the tornado that pulls that condensation funnel down, very obviously on the ground there. And then this is actually after the tornado had kind of dissipated, you can see that this lowering is here, but this was taken south of Waxahachie, kind of around Lake Waxahachie, where that circulation moved through. But you can tell that it's not as organized a funnel. If anything, the funnel is probably right there. It's really rugged, probably not doing any damage. You can't really see past that house, but that's probably after the funnel had lifted from the ground and was no longer organized. So next step here, we're going to actually take a look at the storm on radar. And now you're going to see what I was seeing. This is what I was looking at that night. And I know that before I went live with this storm, you guys were begging and pleading for me to, actually show you actually go live and everything. Which in fact, I'm going to do something I didn't realize that my camera might have been blocking this view, and I bet it was. Let me just do this one more time. Let's see. Okay. I just want to show you this footage one more time because I think my camera might have been in the way. So let's just do this one last time, revisit this, where you can look off to the edge of the screen, and I'm actually looking at the stream here. And this is we're going to be looking up in the sky for this way. Okay, here we go. Here's where that power flash is going to show that tornado just ever so briefly. And you see the wall cloud there, and you can see that it's rounded. You can see signs of rotation there. This whole rain-free base. And then the power flash. There it is. Bam. And you can see the wall cloud there. Very obvious rotation as a part of that. So, again, let's get to the storm on radar. And first thing we're going to do, we're actually going to look at radar Omega here because we have, and this is the activity that we're seeing right now across our area. Not a whole lot, just some regular rain, but I'm actually able to bring up the radar from that day. So this is what we ended up with, and you can see there's that little bit of circulation there that I was watching later in the day. That didn't ever become anything, but here is the view of this whole event. You can see the storms developing right there along that dry line, and you can actually see the dry line there. So here comes this first storm. And you can see that this first circulation kind of weakened, but here's that second one. And there it is, moving into Ellis County. That's where the tornado happened, right there. And then, of course, we had that, when the cold front actually caught up with the dry line, we had that whole squall line and everything developed there. So let's just keep a close view on all of this, and we'll see everything come through. So you can see this first storm, this first circulation that brought a tornado kind of to the Blum area. That first circulation weakened, but one came right after it, and this is the one that came right through, and there it is. That's where the tornado occurs, and you saw it kind of pulled north up into the Palmer area before finally being overtaken by the cold front. So we'll take one more look at it, and then we're actually going to get kind of a more in-depth view, a much closer view. So here we go. And as this thing got close, I was actually scarfing down food. I kept delaying going live because I was trying to eat, and I went live right about now. And that's where we had that circulation develop through Covington, south of Grandview, and then it came in through the 5 Points north of 5 Points area, the Boz area north of Forreston, and then of course we had that line, kind of that squall line that came through, and possibly did some straight line wind damage after the initial tornado came through, which could have complicated some of the forensics after the storm of actually determining what happened. All right, so let's take a look back at everything on radar, and I'm going to take myself off here. I'm just going to clear the screen here for you. So let's take a look at this. This is, as you can see, this is right before the circulation itself moved into our area, and there was a little bit of a couplet there just right around the Maypearl area. This was the first circulation, I think, that was weakening. Or, well, this was the tornado. That was the first circulation that weakened. And then the second one comes in, and there you can see that's where everything got wrapped up, right there. And of course, it didn't last as long because it did get kind of caught up. And here we'll get another view. It kind of got rain wrapped, kind of wrapped itself up. But this is, you can see the couplet developed just right there. There it is. That couplet developed very, very fast. Went across the highway, then it dissipated. So in retrospect, the tornado itself did not last long. Here's another view of that. Here's that couplet as you saw. This is the lifespan of the tornado. There it is. Goes across the highway, moves through, and then it dissipates south of Waxahachie, close to the lake. So when it comes down to it, the actual couplet itself developed very fast, and the rotation was very broad, and right there is where it came close in. So that's where it tightened, and then you can see here's that straight line winds that came in after it. But you can see this broad rotation, and then bam, right here, right there is where it tightened. Very, very fast. Ramped up very quickly, and then died out very quickly. And then here comes that little whammy. So that was how everything looked on radar. That's what I was seeing. So you can only imagine. I can't see. I can only see the videos and photos and things people are sending in intermittently because I'm trying to keep an eye on radar. So that is some of the kind of information overload that occurs where I am. Is I'm getting pictures, I'm getting reports, I'm looking at radar, I'm trying to put all of these things together. And the point where I said we have a potential tornado on the ground was around the time that the tornado actually began. I went back and watched the stream, and it was pretty close, but I wasn't confident in saying there was a tornado on the ground because I didn't have any eyewitness information. I didn't have hard reports, and I try to be very careful. Now, kind of the same thing happened with the Midlothian tornado back in 2019. That ramped up very quickly, and it was kind of hard to see exactly what was going on just based on radar. And so, that being the case, I was trying to be more cautious, and so, I called it as I could see it. So, one of these days, maybe there will be more eyewitness information we can get, more daytime stuff, and it'll be easier to actually see things happening, and I can make more competent calls. I try to listen to storm spotters as well. That's another line of information that we have coming in, and storm spotters were kind of scattered that night as well. So you put the fact that it was at night, hard to see, put all these things together, and it's a miracle we got what we did. So here, let's talk about the aftermath of the tornado. And so first of all, this is the circulation when it was still in northern Hill County, and it did some damage in the Blum area. It was an EF2 at that point. And then this is what it was rated in our particular area. Ellis County tornado south of Waxahachie. This is the path, okay? So it started just to the west of 876. It goes up, crosses 35, and then dissipates over south of Lake Waxahachie. And you can see a pretty wide, get the laser point here, you can see it's a pretty wide area that it actually covered. And so, and these are all different reports as well, of different things, and the EF tornado, the EF0 tornado that happened 2 miles east of Grandview, that was the first circulation before the second one took over. But this was the path, and 876, so the video that we showed was probably taken right around here, I think. I believe it was right around here. So a very good view of that tornado moving through. And as you see, these little cones are all the reports of damage. And you can see all the reports on 35 and right around 77. And we're going to take a look at some of that damage here in just a few moments here. But as you can see, again, there's that couplet on the National Weather Service radar, that very clear hook. And so this was the tornado, and it went from 844 to 857. And that might seem like a long time, but it was pretty quick. It was a pretty quick circulation, and it did enough damage for sure to really impact some folks. So here's a picture of the damage that Matt and I personally actually surveyed. And as you can actually see, let me get me back on there too. As you can see, here's a couple of things. First is the kind of the 18-wheeler, the tractor trailer that had been knocked over, and this was a mobile home. Now, we arrived on this scene right after Pete Delkus had actually just left, and we spoke to a News 8 reporter there as well. And I actually want to make sure I mention her name because she joked with me that no one ever actually knows her. You know, everybody knows Pete Delkus. So I want to try to look up her name here quickly before. And I'm doing exactly what she said people do. I feel awful. But Matt and I can tell you why I remember Pete Delkus' name, but we won't get into that at the moment. So what you notice here, I want to bring your attention to something. First of all of this sheet metal, and that was one of the things that we saw everywhere with this tornado, right? There's sheet metal everywhere. The first thing is this tractor trailer, I believe, was here. And then what you notice is that there's a little bit of drag here, but not a lot, okay? So it went up and down. This little mobile home here, this structure was there. You can see where it originally was standing. It ended there. And off in the distance, you don't really see a lot of where it was dragged on the ground. It was picked up and swung. So this little tree here, it was almost like this tree was a hinge, and it just kind of went this way, and it rested. It hit this a tree here and this tractor trailer, and finally hit the ground and rested before the tornado went on. One of the interesting things that we noticed out here was, and I don't have any photographs of the rest of the path of the tornado. I was so busy analyzing and just looking at it that I didn't think to photograph it. But what we saw was that there was this damage, which was very tight and very confined considering the area. And then off to behind us there was the rest of the path of the tornado. But there seemed to be a gap between the main path of the tornado, where you could see it went across a field, and it was I'm forgetting the street names that were out there in that particular area. I'll have to look into it and see. But what we definitely noticed though was that there was space in between this damage and the rest of the path of the tornado. At least a gap of where there wasn't like a solid area of damage. And there definitely was where the main path of the tornado was. There was definitely a solid area where damage had been done. It was very, very noticeable. And it was Johnson Road and Hollis Road. So we were at the intersection of Johnston and Hollis Road right here. And it went across, it hit a house, and then it went across Hollis Road through a field and hit a house there as well. And one of the things that I noticed was that in the field, I could see at different distances, yes, Hollis and Johnson. And what I noticed was at different distances in the field, you could see damage going different directions. Wind is going to blow things one direction or another. And this is how you can tell the difference between tornado damage and high-speed winds, straight line winds damage. That in the foreground, just in front of me, there was a 2x4. As I'm looking east, there was a 2x4 that was sticking out of the ground like it had kind of been blown towards me, right? Further down, there was a tree laying off kind of to the left. And then as you got towards 77, there was a bed of trees that was laying that way. So there was damage, there was debris that was blown this way, and then that way. And you could see that there was obviously rotation because the damage was done in different directions. The other thing too is, we'll see in a second, some of this sheet metal was like wrapped around stuff. So you could tell there was clearly rotation and different directional winds that caused that sheet metal to wrap around. So what I concluded here was that this damage, because there appeared to be a bit of a distance between a gap between this and the rest of the path of the tornado, is I believe there could have been suction vortices involved. Okay? Suction vortices are itty bitty tornadoes that surround the main tornado and do quite a lot of damage where they are. They are, for being such small and seemingly insignificant parts of the broader rotation of the tornado itself, they do a lot of damage and definitely would have been capable of this. So that was my conclusion, is that we may have had suction vortices at play here, and they would rotate around the main circulation. And next to us, right in the field next to us, was another structure. The structure was barely touched, but the tree in front of it was stripped. And it would have had to have kind of gone around, kind of gone, you have the main circulation, kind of would have had to gone this way a little bit, kind of outward a little bit to hit this, and then it looked like it went back inward because it didn't hit the house that was right next to it. So we almost saw kind of a curved path of this damage. It appeared almost like there could have been a suction vortices. Now, the easiest way to tell if there's suction vortices going on, or a multi-vortice tornado, multi-vortex tornado, is when you see it. That's the easiest way to tell. We couldn't see it. We don't have those visual clues to specifically give us that confirmation. But that's what we understood from what we were looking at. That's really what it looked like. And I don't think that straight line winds would have done this. You could make the argument that the straight line winds that came after did this, and that's why it's not part of the central tornado path. But I don't think they would have done this because it picked it up and swung it. Okay? And then you can see that it went one way and the tractor trailer went another way, right? So very obviously tornado damage, but there did appear to be a gap right where the street was, right where, because this is on one side of Johnson Street, the other was on the other side of Johnson Street, a little ways, a little bit of a couple minutes walk, on Hollis. So when you put all that together, there did appear to be a little bit of a gap there. So, and Matt is reminding me, of course, yeah, that there was, that this actually was an unoccupied structure. There was a home right next to it on both sides. Okay? On both sides. That were virtually untouched. Maybe some shingles lost a little bit, nothing really much. So that tells you how tight and confined that circulation was. But clearly, it was enough to impact this. So definitely lended a lot of evidence to suggest the presence of a suction vortice. And I'll post something about suction vortices soon if you want to see that. In fact, you can actually see here, look at that, you can see some of the tree limbs that are gone with all the rest of this, and just, it's just madness. And I think the only reason this tree wasn't taken down, you can see that it's done, there's some damage there, and there's a lot of sheet metal up against it. I think that the winds were brunted by this structure, so it didn't hit that tree as much. So, like I said, tornadoes almost always leave a footprint and a clear indication of what actually occurred when it went through. So here's some more pictures of, and like I said, this sheet metal was just wrapped around, and you can see that this part of the tree was knocked over, and you can tell that it's kind of wrapped. And there were places, we were driving along, and there were places where, in like creek beds and stuff, where there was sheet metal just kind of hidden, and it almost looked like it was just kind of, dropped. It wasn't really there for any particular reason, but you could tell that it was probably, it may well have been, it was far away from the actual path of the tornado, but it was probably thrown out and then dropped by the circulation. So once it passed or once it dissipated, everything falls eventually. So it might have just kind of fallen through there and dropped through there. This is another picture of the same area. It kind of gives a better view of how it's wrapped around, right? You can tell that this is wrapped around that tree. And it's just, there's just stuff just everywhere. And look at this too. The fact that this is blowing this way and then this is knocked that way. So you can kind of see that different directional, damage as well. Where you're seeing that things are laying, different places. So, that is all the substance that I have. I want to have plenty of time to take your questions. So let's go ahead and take those questions. I'm going to have Matt send those to me. Matt, if you'll start sending the questions through. And feel free to send your questions now, too. And I know that one question says, where were the tornadoes? There is if you want to watch this once it's posted, there will be a recording that's posted later. So feel free to go back and watch for those details as well, because there's a whole discussion of where the tornadoes occurred. So the Covington area, why do they seem to get a lot of severe weather? So let me say this: there are a lot of conversations about places that get a lot of severe weather and then places that just don't seem to get anything. And what I will say is that the Covington area, from what I'm looking at, it always seems to be where the storms are going to eventually hit us, because they're moving from southwest to northeast, right? And areas to our west, the further west you go, the more daytime you have. It's pretty close to us, so it's not a very big difference. I would doubt that Covington gets any more or less than really anyone else, but I will say that there does seem to be a weird tendency where we had, I don't know how many storms we had that developed in the Hamilton area that then moved through our area. It was like Hamilton was a storm factory or something, but it just seemed like that was just such a repetitive thing. And then, but the further west you go, once you get west of Fort Worth and those areas, there's more daytime with the dry line. So a lot of times, if there's severe weather there that weakens by the time it gets here, that's why, because they have more daylight with that dry line. And then Tinsley's asking, did the tornadoes actually destroy anything? And yes, they absolutely did. There are other photos that I received that were taken from news coverage. I wasn't gonna reuse someone else's property, but there were a few homes that were pretty well destroyed. It was harsh. It was pretty harsh. What the damage that was done. Fortunately, there was no loss of life. Of course, there was one gentleman, Rob, who was shielding his daughter as they were actually taken aloft, actually lifted by the tornado. He was protecting her and doing what any good father does. And, he got a lot of cuts, a lot of bruises, a lot of really deep wounds, but he is lucky to be alive, because the way that sheet metal was going around, it could easily have ended his life very, very quickly. And his daughter, I think, was relatively unharmed, in really good shape, because of his efforts, because of what he did, and the way that he kept her safe. So I actually spoke to him. It was an honor to have spoken to him. And, he cried as he told me, I just did the best I could. And he did a really good job. He did what I think any good father would have done, what any father should do in that kind of situation, which is keep his daughter safe. So it looks like those are the only questions. If you have any other questions, you want to bring those in. Marty Kane Weimar saying that how thankful she is. And I actually want to mention the email that Marty sent. And I did get to read that, and I do want to actually read that on the air if that's okay with you, because this email really touched me, and it reminded me why I do what I do. That this can be stressful work, it can be tiring work, it can be exhausting. Late nights, early mornings. This is the shirt I was wearing because it was expected to be a long night. It was the Storms Never Sleep shirt. This is the shirt I was wearing when I covered all of those, covered this tornado and these storms. And she said, "Thank you for what you did, and you did for my family that day. We live in 5 Points, just a few hundred yards from the Nichols family. And because we were watching your broadcast, we were in our shelter long before the tornado ever struck, and our family was safe. Anytime since May 3rd that there has been any type of weather, my two kiddos asked to turn on the Facebook weatherman. They trust you because they kept them safe. Our family can never repay you for what you gave us that night." I just that really hit me. That impact. It also says, I also want to thank you for taking the time to invest in our community. This was not something you were required to do yet because of the calling and passion you have. You have possibly saved many lives and families. Thank you isn't enough for now, but thank you. And that really did mean a lot. And, I could get all the sponsors in the world. I could get all the stars in the world. I could get all the contributions and all the different things in the world. This is what really makes a difference in terms of motivating me to keep doing what I do. Because it's tiring work, it's stressful work. There's a lot of just straight office work that goes into this that people don't realize, but I enjoy doing it, and it's messages like this that motivate me to keep doing what I'm doing. So I think we're going to go ahead. I don't think we have any other questions. I think that's all we have. Go get your tickets. Go get your tickets to that. I want to see all of you. Let's go back to it all the way back here. If I can. Get your tickets to the Twister screening. I want to see all of you there. I don't get to meet people, right? I mean, the work that I do, I'm behind a computer screen all the time. And we are almost 2/3 of the theater sold out already. Only about 1/3 of the tickets remain. So if you're going to be there, and I want you there, I want to meet you, Marty. I want you there. I want to meet you. I want to shake your hand. I want to hug you. Whatever works. Whatever we can do to get to know each other a little better. I want to see all of you there. It's going to be a good time. I'm going to take questions afterwards and have a conversation with you guys. Get to hopefully meet all of you after that event. The good thing is this is the last screening of the day. There's not a screening following us, so we can kind of take our time. The theater is being very generous with us, kind of letting us take our time and really spend time doing what we're doing. So let's go ahead and wrap up here. The link for the tickets is in the comment section. I believe it's posted there. I'm actually going to grab that and actually post that again here. There's that link for the tickets. Go grab your tickets. They're only $5 each. I wanted to make them cheap. I'm actually absorbing all of the Eventbrite fees and the tax on that, I believe. I just wanted to keep it straight $5, but I needed to sell tickets just to limit the attendance so that we didn't have 100 people show up for 85 seats. I didn't want to have to actually turn people away. So we're controlling it that way. Make sure you get your tickets for that. I cannot wait to see you there. And I hope to hear more from all of you soon, as far as tell me your stories, from this tornado and from other experiences you've had, how Ellis County weather has impacted you, because it keeps me going. So thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll see all of you once again, a special event coming up on the 27th of July. I hope everyone has a fun and safe July 4th weekend. I will say that I am watching the forecast for that. It might be kind of rainy that day, so I don't know, at least on the 3rd, on that Saturday. I'm not entirely sure exactly what's going to happen, because we're kind of, the forecast for Saturday, the chance of storms goes up and down. There's been a lot of up and down as far as the likelihood of showers and thunderstorms, but we'll wait and see. The good news is highs in the upper 80s for Saturday. I will be in the parade with Hope Clinic walking, so I am rooting for cooler temperatures that day for sure. Everybody take care. Have a wonderful 4th of July weekend. And I hope to see you all, at least a great many of you, at the screening of Twister on July 27th here in Waxahachie. Thank you so much.